2016 season is underway. How's everybody doing? I'm Jay Elson, and this is Coyote Corner. An offseason that was heavy on change certainly helped build anticipation for South Dakota football this fall, but it also left those outside the program with a lot of questions heading into last week's season opener at New Mexico. The two biggest involved the offense. First, how quickly would the new system get up to speed? And maybe more importantly, who was going to run it? The answer to the latter came shortly before kickoff as Minnesota transfer Chris Streveler got the nod at quarterback, and he made the most of the opportunity early. After New Mexico opened the game with a 75-yard touchdown run, Streveler answers with one of his own. He goes 55 yards for the score, and 2 minutes in, it's 7-7. Ensuing drive, Lobos looking to strike again, but the Yotes D says no. Adam Harris decks Richard McQuarley. John Mogg recovers the fumble, and South Dakota takes over at its own 10-yard line. They'd cash it in 9 plays later. Streveler again spins off a tackle, and he is gone. 42 yards this time. Streveler finished with 131 and 2 touchdowns on the ground, 14-7 Coyotes. Unfortunately, the lead would be short-lived. As good as Streveler was, New Mexico's Terry Gibson was even better. He carried 3 times for 160 yards in the first quarter, with 84 of those coming right here. Game was knotted at 14 after 1. The big plays continued to start the second. Austin Apodaca over the middle to Matt Quarles, and he does the rest. That covers 62 yards, and it's 21-14 Lobos. Big sequence a few minutes later. Alex Coker drops Apodaca deep in the New Mexico end. First career sack for Coker. Sets up the Yotes for some great field position, but Austin Simmons mishandles the punt, and the Lobos get it back at the USD 46. They turn that into a touchdown and then strike again just before the break. Apodaca hooks up with Q Drennan for a 26-yard touchdown, giving New Mexico a 35-14 halftime lead. The Coyotes didn't quit though. Third quarter, Streveler sets up the screen for Takari Carpenter, and a couple of solid blocks give him a clear path to the end zone. 41 yards for his first career touchdown. It was also Streveler's first career passing touchdown. That pulled South Dakota within 17, but that would be as close as they would get. New Mexico added 10 more points down the stretch to beat the Coyotes by a count of 48-21. Streveler had a great day in defeat. We already mentioned what he did on the ground, but he also threw the ball well, completing 10 of 13 passes for 117 yards and that touchdown to Carpenter. Defensively, the Lobos' triple option attack was everything it was cracked up to be. New Mexico put up 1,615 yards of total offense, with 428 of those coming on the ground.
I mean, I can speak for everyone on this team. We want to win every game. So I don't think anyone's happy losing this game. Like I said, I think we did some good things that we can build on next week. But I don't think anyone leaves this game feeling satisfied about the showing we put out.
You know, there was some flashes of good, like Coach said, and then there was some flashes of some bad things that we got to fix. But, you know, they're a good football team. I give them props. I thought we played decent, but come out next week ready to go for Weber State.
Bob Nielsen's first game as South Dakota's head coach is now in the books, and when we come back, we're going to get his take on how things went down in Albuquerque. This is Coyote Corner.
Coyote Corner on Midcoast Sports Network is presented by Sanford Orthopedics and Sports Medicine, Dakota Land Honda, and your Core Trust Bank.
And welcome back to Coyote Corner, joined now down at the Dakota Dome by the head coach of the University of South Dakota Coyotes, Bob Nielsen. And Bob, game number 1 in the books, a 48-21 loss at New Mexico. And let's start today with the quarterbacks, because it did get so much attention during the preseason. It came right down to the last minute before you made a decision, at least publicly, and you went with Chris Streveler. So what was behind all that? How did you land on number 15?
Well, they all had good preseason camps, all 3 of them, and we had confidence in our ability to use all 3. As we got closer to game time, as we looked at our game plan against New Mexico, you know, we felt that utilizing a little bit more quarterback run component was going to be a way to move the ball effectively, and Chris gives us some experience, having started a couple of games at Minnesota, and also the ability to make tremendous plays with his feet, so we gave him the nod, and certainly didn't disappoint us with his play over the course of the first 3 quarters while he was in there.
Yeah, no, he did not. The numbers pretty well speak for themselves. He played very well, both running the football and passing it, quite frankly, 10 of 13 through the air as well. So going forward, is he the full-time guy, or is this going to continue to be a week-by-week thing?
Well, he demonstrated that he's capable of making big plays. We need that component in our offense, and so he'll start the game this week. I thought Ryan, when he came in, played well. Certainly can run our offense the same way, and so it's not going to be out of the question that we'll utilize Ryan in sync. And also was glad that we got Austin Simmons some snaps.
Sure.
When you're running the quarterback, you're going to need depth at that position, and we have that with those 3.
Well, how about the rest of the offense? I mean, Chris did an awful lot. He accounted for a lot of that total offense that you did, and you did move the football effectively at times against the Lobos. But in terms of the rest of the guys out there, was there anyone or anything about that group that stood out that you liked?
Well, offensive line-wise, we made some progress. We talk about that group being a work in progress, and I think we made some progress through the course of the game, and a group that I think has a lot of potential to even get better. I thought Trevor ran the ball fine. We didn't create a lot of space for him. New Mexico's a defensive football team that's hard to do that. That's why the quarterback run was a big part of what we did.
Okay.
The receiving core, we've got to utilize that group more. So that'll be a focus here this week to be better balanced.
Okay, how about defensively now? You knew exactly what the challenge was going to be going in. New Mexico's triple option was as good as advertised. A lot of good athletes on that side of the ball. They caused a lot of headaches and created a lot of big plays. 6 of them, in fact, that covered at least 23 yards. What's the most disappointing thing about that statistic?
Well, that probably in itself is the most disappointing statistic. You know, we want to be a defense that minimizes big plays, and the big play touchdowns really hurt us. You can't allow a team like that to take the yardage in big chunks, and part of that is we didn't tackle very well, and then we didn't match the option scheme as well as I think we were capable of. And
it's unique. It is a tougher challenge defensively because it's not something that you see every week. But did you see enough on that side of the ball to give yourself something that you can look forward to, I guess, going into maybe a little bit more typical style offense this week in Weber State?
Well, hopefully defensively we can take a big step forward. We spent a lot of time on the option scheme. It's hard to simulate the speed that New Mexico utilized. This week we're going to play what I would call a little bit more traditional offensive scheme with kind of a balanced run-pass. But we're going to have to play a lot better.
Despite the big plays that the defense did give it up, I thought the real turning point was a turnover. You had 3 of them total. They turned them into 17 points. But I thought the first one proved to be the biggest. Do you agree there, just because of the situation in which it occurred?
Well, the fumbled punt was certainly a big play. Kicking game big plays tend to be field position changers and momentum changers. And, we had a chance there. It was 21-14 at the time. We would have gotten field position in their territory. Who knows if we put that in the end zone with the drive, how that halftime ends. But it really gave them a tremendous amount of momentum going into halftime as they converted that to a score, and then got another score late in the half.
Overall, as you look at the overall performance now, when we talked in the days leading up to this game at New Mexico, you said you wanted to get 2 things out of it. You said you wanted to compete first and foremost, but that you also wanted to give yourselves some things to build on. Did you get what you wanted overall?
I thought our guys competed, and we competed till the end, which is one of the things that you worry about when the score gets a little separated like that. We certainly identified a lot of things that we've got to improve upon, and some things that we can build on. And that's what this week's all about, is we've got to build on those things that we did well. We've got to minimize the things that we didn't do as well, and make sure that those things don't continue to haunt us.
How'd you come out of this game physically?
Everybody that played Saturday or Thursday night should be 100% this Saturday.
Excellent. That's always good news, especially early in the season, right? Well, Coach Nielsen and the Coyotes have already moved on to this week's home opener, but before we shift our focus, we're going to get a little extra Fields vision. Midco SN analyst Andre Fields will give us his take on what went down in Albuquerque after this. Well, we've shown you the highlights and heard from the head coach. Now it's time to let our own expert voice his thoughts on that season-opening loss at New Mexico. Former South Dakota defensive back Andre Fields back with us here on Coyote Corner for a 5th straight season. That is hard to believe, my friend. But Andre, anyway, it's time for a special Thursday edition of Saturday Storylines. First things first, Chris Strevler. He was outstanding, 258 combined yards and those 2 rushing touchdowns. My question to you, though, is what did you like best with what you saw out of the Coyote signal caller?
Well, I think the first thing that stood out for me, Jay, was his athleticism. I mean, he was very, very fast, running away from Mountain West defensive backs. I think that's the first thing that jumps off the page. He threw the ball well when he had to. He didn't try to force things. He took what the offense gave him. Don't want to call it a game manager type thing because that's not what he was really asked to do. He was asked to go out and make plays. We saw him do that. He made the plays he was supposed to make at the times he was supposed to make them. I think going forward, that's going to be huge if he's the person that starts to develop the reps and the chemistry with the others on the offense.
So put your coaching cap on. I mean, he puts up these kind of numbers against that kind of competition.
Right.
We heard a lot in the preseason about the possibility of seeing multiple quarterbacks in this game, which we did. We saw all 3 of them. Ryan Sager and Austin Simmons both took snaps as well. But going forward, how much does he have to play like he did against New Mexico to become the straight-up starting quarterback?
I think that's just it. He's going to have to continue to make those plays, but I think what they want to see out of him is how he manages the game in certain situations. How does he do in 2-minute offense, 4-minute offense? How does he do in sudden change? And some of this doesn't just have to do with how he responds as far as making plays, but how he responds mentally. You know, does he galvanize the team? Is he able to get the guys together and then go back out and execute? If they see that, I think then that's going to be the difference maker between just calling him the guy or continuing with the competition.
What we do know for now, as Bob Nielsen alluded to earlier, is that Chris Strevler is going to get the start this weekend against Weber State. All right, now another thing that really jumped out at you in this game, no question, was the explosive plays. Yes. We talked with Coach Nielsen already about how New Mexico had 6 plays of 23 yards or more, but the Coyotes did have a few big ones of their own. What's the bigger talking point in your eyes? The fact that the defense gave up that many, or the fact that this new offense, which is still very much a work in progress, showed that kind of potential right off the bat week 1?
Well, I think it's definitely the offense that jumps right out at you because you have a new offense, a new offensive system being put in by new coaches, but more importantly, you have new players running this system. And I think for them to have that type of success early is just going to give them a lot of confidence knowing that as they go along, once they get more comfortable with this offense and those plays and those coaches, this is the type of potential that they could have for 4 straight quarters. So I think that's the bigger talking point.
Well, there's no question, too, that some of the struggles defensively came as a result of New Mexico's triple option offense. The Lobos executed it very well to the tune of 615 total yards and 428 yards rushing the football. They also did it with some very talented athletes. South Dakota, of course, not going to see anything like that again this year, but what's the most valuable thing that this defense can take away from that experience from last Thursday night?
Well, I think the most valuable thing is the fact that they don't have to see it anymore. I mean, the triple option, it brings a whole lot of things with it in itself. You have to be extremely disciplined, and if you start to load up to stop the triple option, then you set yourself up for things on the back end. We saw some of that on Saturday, or Thursday, excuse me. We saw that when they tried to come up and stop it, they left themselves vulnerable for big plays. When you try to defend big plays, you leave yourself vulnerable for those type of athletes. I think one of the other things to mention, Jay, is that they're not going to see these type of athletes running that particular system. Yes, they will see some speed in the Missouri Valley, but they may not see it across the board like New Mexico had it, and especially in an offense like this one. So that's what you take from it. Like, hey, fellas, we did what we had to do against that team. Now it's done. Let's move on and get comfortable with what we're going to see week in and week out.
Does it make your life in any way easier when you line up from this point forward against more traditional schemes?
I think so. It definitely does, because this is what you're going to be practicing each and every week, not just for one week where you have to kind of tweak tweak and change a few assignments here and there to make sure that everything in the triple option is covered. With most traditional offenses, you can pretty much line up and run your same things, and therefore you get the repetition to get better at it.
Good, and I think they did show some flashes. I think that there's some talent on that defense. Some of it was execution. Some of it was not great tackling, to be honest. I think you shore some of those things up, and you're going to see a much better defense as the season goes along. All right, finally tonight, one thing that's going to get overlooked in a game like this is special teams, particularly the kicking game. But Miles Bergner had a fantastic day. The senior from Longmont, Colorado, averaged just under 56 yards on 5 punts, including a long of 64. He also recorded touchbacks on 2 of 4 kickoffs and went 3 for 3 on extra points. Now, he did have some help from the wind on some of that, but there's no question what this kind of game can do for a kicker's psyche.
Oh, yeah, you got to have it because they're so mentally dialed in to how well they're doing. Did they miss this? Did they make that? So going forward, this is going to be big for Miles Bergner, plus it's going to be big for us and his confidence, because I think everybody expects him to have these type of performances week in, week out.
And he's had that kind of pressure his whole career at USD, and as a result, I think we've seen some peaks and valleys. So to start at this big of a peak, I think certainly bodes well going forward. Absolutely, because if he continues on this peak, then it's going to be good for the Coyotes, and we've seen him go into different peaks and valleys throughout the year. When he's had good games, he's performed well for long stretches, so let's hope that this is the beginning of a nice long stretch. Absolutely. All right, good stuff. Thanks, Andre. We'll see you back here next week. Thank you. All right, well, the Dakota Dome crowd will get its first look at the Bob Nielsen-led Coyotes this Saturday against Weber State. We'll preview that matchup next. The Coyotes had no trouble getting up for the season opener at New Mexico, but I think it's safe to say that the anticipation level for this week's matchup with Big Sky foe Weber State is even higher.
There's something special about home openers, and excited to see the Dakota Dome full and cheering for our guys. I know our guys are excited to play at home, and certainly a great opponent to bring in here for the home opener.
The Wildcats are also coming off a loss to an FBS opponent. They were dusted 45-6 by Utah State on Thursday, although Nielsen says that is not at all indicative of the quality of this opponent.
Football team that certainly I think probably came into the year thinking that they might have a chance to be a playoff team based off of last year's success, and so we've got to play better, and the competition is going to be good, and so I'm excited to see our guys respond to this week's challenge.
From a physical standpoint, Nielsen thinks Weber State actually matches up very well with teams from the Missouri Valley Football Conference. That's especially true on defense, which returned 7 starters to a unit that was best in the Big Sky against the run last season. Offensively, the Wildcats feature a much more balanced attack than what South Dakota saw last week, and disrupting that balance will be a major focus.
We've got to do a better job of containing the running game and put an offense into positions where they've got to be more one-dimensional, and we didn't do that against New Mexico. We let them literally run the football when they wanted to, and that'll be a key for us on Saturday. And the other thing is we've got to win the turnover margin and do some little things better than what we did.
Saturday will mark the first meeting between Weber State and South Dakota since 1970. That game ended in a 21-21 tie, but this one is guaranteed to have a winner. On that note, we should point out that South Dakota is 32-5 in home openers at the Dakota Dome and has won 13 straight. We'll have it for you live here on Midcoast Sports Network with coverage kicking off at 2 p.m. Central. Since a season-opening loss, the South Dakota volleyball team has been red hot. We'll check in on Leanne Williamson's squad after this.
Coyote Corner on Midcoast Sports Network is presented by Sanford Orthopedics and Sports Medicine, Dakota Land Honda, and your Core Trust Bank.
And welcome back. Well, the gridiron isn't the only field of play that's been busy this fall. In fact, there's already been bright spots within several of the fall sports programs at South Dakota. For more on that, here's Kelly Stewart.
Thanks, Jay. Well, in addition to the home opener this weekend, there's definitely a lot outside of the Dakota Dome to be excited about at USD right now, and that starts in the facility attached to the Dome, Sanford Coyote Sports Center. The Coyote volleyball team opened its brand new home court last week on Tuesday with a 3-1 win over North Dakota, and they really haven't looked back since then. Thursday brought another win for USD, sweeping Missouri-Kansas City at the SCSC. The Coyotes were led by junior middle blocker Kelly Law and freshman outside hitter Elizabeth Lotion, who both statted double-digit kills in the win. Standout setter Brittany Jessen didn't go quiet on the night either. She added 37 assists to go with 14 digs and 5 kills. The junior from Mendota Heights, Minnesota has recorded 30-plus assists in every match this year. The volleyball team then headed south on I-29 over the weekend for the Omaha Classic, hosted by Nebraska-Omaha. Despite not playing their cleanest volleyball, according to head coach Leanne Williamson, the Yotes defeated Ball State and Abilene Christian 3-1 in both matches. USD was led by senior outside hitter Audrey Rieg, who notched 19 kills in each match and also added 15 digs against Abilene Christian. Now let's stay in Omaha, but take it outdoors, where the USD men's golf team took home the title of the UNO Invitational, led by freshman Matt Tolan, who finished 3 under and won the individual title. The USD women's team was also at the invite, placing 3rd as a team behind an individual 3rd-place finish by senior Brenna Lervik. Heading back up I-29, the USD men's and women's cross-country teams were in action at the Augie Twilight Meet in Sioux Falls. The Coyote women won the team title, placing 5 runners in the top 10. Meanwhile, the USD men finished 3rd, while being led by sophomore Eldon Warner, who ran to an 11th place finish. And finally, the USD women's soccer team was in action on the road over the weekend, though they didn't fare too well, dropping matches to both Drake and UNI. The Coyotes will look to bounce back next week when they travel to Ames to take on Iowa State on September 13th. For Coyote Corner, I'm Kelly Stewart.
That is our time for this week. For Kelly Stewart, I'm Jay Elson. We'll see you back here next Wednesday night for another episode of Coyote Corner.